I'm here with Bob Michaels from ZV. ZV is our headline sponsor for the Innovate APAC Awards 2023, and we are going to be analyzing and breaking down the finalists for the Innovate APAC Awards 2023. Kind of delving into the trends and what this set of finalists means for Asia Pacific's AV industry. Bob, what's something that's jumping out from this finalist list for you?
I think when I first took out the list, it wasn't all that surprising. A lot of corporate entries, obviously. I mean, that's the largest segment of the market. But there were a couple of things that really came out in front of me as I looked down and looked through all the entrants. The education market was one where I really didn't expect to see so much in APAC. But was pleasantly surprised to see that the trends that we're seeing, say in the United States or that we're seeing in Europe, are really starting to take hold in the region as well. And that was a little bit surprising to me, but also quite comforting because it's a huge vertical.
Yeah, my personal opinion is very much in line with you. I think education has pipped corporate as the most competitive category this year. And from the sneak peek I've had at the finalists and what integrators have put forward detailing their work, AV over IP seems to be a very common trend, coupled with remote monitoring and management. And these two things are coming together to create these hybrid learning and teaching spaces all across Asia Pacific.
Yeah, it's kind of a complicated sector in my opinion, okay? Because you're not looking at just some small meeting space, okay? What you're dealing with is a lot of meeting spaces, if you want to call them meeting spaces, classrooms, lecture rooms, laboratories, et cetera, so on. And you're dealing with a tremendous amount of interactivity across the campus. Okay. And there's a lot of requirements that you have to take a look at there. Number one, obviously, you need video quality, you need audio quality, but you also have to be concerned with latency, right? You don't want a student in a remote lecture hall stepping on the professor as they're speaking as well, with the questions back and forth, right? It's got to be fluent, it's got to be instant, there can't be any latency, or people's attention spans are not that great to begin with, right? And so if the professor's talking, the student's talking, people are out the window looking, right? So that's just one. But then it's not just in a classroom or a lecture hall. You're talking about potentially cafeterias where you just have menus, right? You're talking about maybe if it's a medical facility where you have a procedure that's going on, right? So the requirement for quality is much, much greater there than it would just be in a normal classroom setting, right? You have wayfinding on campuses, and perhaps not so much in APAC yet, but in the US and Europe, sports, right? Huge driver, huge driver, right? And totally different requirements in those facilities. Plus, and all that, we are talking about on-premise video distribution. What about the streaming requirements, right? So, when a vendor goes in or an integrator goes into it, they have to have some deep-rooted knowledge of a lot of different applications that can work, might not work. They have to know equipment, et cetera, so on. So it's not just going in and making a little huddle space or some room space, moving video around. It's pretty complicated.
Another category that jumped out to me was hospitality. Now, traditionally, this has been dominated by five-star hotel properties, and we still have those type of entries. But what I was very interested to see was the rise of lifestyle venues and these projects being put forward and competing with our traditional hotel contenders. And I think that's a very interesting evolution of the hospitality category this year.
I think that hotels always have taken the forefront, right? I mean, let's face it, the Asian, anywhere in APAC where you have a five-star hotel, it's a much, much different category than it is anywhere else on the planet, right? I mean, the service, the facilities, everything are just that much greater. And so I think they had a responsibility to have fantastic AV throughout the facility, whether it be in a lobby, whether it be in a room or a conference room or whatever it might be. But again, everyone is not spending a lot of time or all their time in five-star hotels, right? There are a lot of people, and in fact, most of the travelers, most of the people visiting are in other types of places. And many people, when they travel, want it to feel like home, right? So now we're seeing video and audio, video probably more, moving into bars and restaurants. Okay. And, you have that American bar style where there's a television that covers every single inch of every wall that's available. Okay. And we're seeing a lot of different video distribution requirements and audio requirements in those facilities. Number one, the more displays or televisions that you have, the more you need for them to all be in sync, right? You can't have one portion of the room 2 seconds ahead of the other portion of the room, because it's just not a great experience for your audience, right? And a lot of these places are really not familiar with video technology, and they're just perhaps at the beginning looking for the least expensive way that they can get some kind of picture or some kind of image out to their audience, right? And that's pretty much always a recipe for disaster at least some point in time. I mean, at ZV, we are big believers in utilizing existing infrastructure if you can, right? Because that's the most cost-effective way that you can do it. And if you're speaking to somebody at a bar who doesn't have this experience, they want to be able to use what they have. Okay. And I mean, there are places that still have coax cable. All right. And frankly, for television or sports, that's probably the most effective and most efficient way to move the video throughout, because you're going to be perfectly in sync. You don't need any hardware at the displays, and you could put as many as you want throughout the facility. But people are looking at IP, all right, because of streaming and other requirements that they have. And there's a good number of solutions that are out there depending upon what you require, right, or what your audience requires, or what you want to accomplish. I think one of the trends that we're seeing here in the States and in a couple of places in Europe is that the facility will use IP, and they'll use compression, okay, which is typically fine, all right, for the majority of the smaller screens that they have. But the trend that we're seeing is that these major bars and restaurants are having one, if you want to call it, prime viewing area, right, where they have a massive LED wall, okay, and in those requirements, and in those instances, they want to have uncompressed video, right? Because an LED wall big is pretty unforgiving in terms of artifacts, et cetera, so on, right? So, and if people are coming in and paying X amount of dollars for a drink or a meal or whatever it might be, they want perfection, okay? So you have this one major screen where you're seeing uncompressed, and the rest of the screens, perhaps you're seeing compressed or some other technology. But the integrator or whoever's going in and making that installation or solving that issue needs to know all of these different technologies. So it's no it's no more a one-trick pony here. That, okay, I have the solution, so just use it everywhere that you can. That's not the case.
Yeah, and to kind of sum up our entire analysis in like a nice little one-liner, for me, it would be APAC's evolving, right? We're maturing extremely, extremely quickly. We're skipping like stuff that takes 10 years. It's taking us 5 just because we have reference points. And yeah, just like the finalists all across just show maturity and development and increase of expertise and skills on the part of the AV professionals. We're starting to get our first multi-location, multi-site, multi-city projects as well, which points in that direction of globalization. What are your thoughts about how APAC's AV industry is evolving?
I have to agree with everything you've said, Herrera. What we are seeing is multinationals who have had installations in other parts of the world, or have started their initial installations in APAC, but they want the same. Okay, let's clarify that they want the same result. Okay, but all of the facilities might not be exactly the same. So the integrators that are involved need to have a global perspective and a global understanding of what the requirements might be for these different companies, because it's not just solving that one problem or in that one installation in Singapore or in Bangkok or in Hanoi, wherever it might be. It's okay. We want to extend from here, and we want to stick with the same technology that we find that works for us, right? And how do we do this? Okay, so what we're seeing in APAC is that amongst many integrators are partnerships with different companies around the globe to make it work. Okay, so that there's a lot of continuity as well. But back to what you were saying, APAC is certainly prepared for this. I mean, the people that I see, that I know, that I deal with, that we deal with as a company, they've done their homework. Okay, this is not their first rodeo.
Yeah.
Okay, and they understand the complexities of the technology, but they also understand how they can make it easy for their customers. And this is what I find most encouraging, right? Is that they've educated themselves, they understand the technologies, they understand difficulties that they may face, but they understand how they can make it simple, right? And this is, I think, one of the key drivers for really moving forward at an aggressive rate, at an aggressive pace throughout Asia with AV installations.
Yeah. I am just thinking about what I'm going to see next year, and I can't even predict it. The pace of growth is that fast. Inavate and ZV, our headline sponsor for the Inavate APAC Awards, will be welcoming everyone to Bangkok on the 24th of May, when all the winners for all the categories will be announced, and we hope to see you there.
Yeah, we're very, very excited to be the sponsor here. I mean, I place great value in these, and especially with the entrants that I've seen this year, or for this group of awards. I mean, it's startling. I mean, extremely impressive, right? And so we're certainly proud to be part of it.
Yeah, I'll see all the finalists and all our sponsors and ZV in Bangkok. Thank you so much for your time, Bob.
Yep. Thanks, Ferrer.